Mariah Stevens had learned early in life that destiny wasn't something you chose. It was something that chose you, usually at the worst possible moment. Standing in her father's study, staring at the marriage contract on the mahogany desk, she felt the walls closing in. The ornate calligraphy mocked her with its permanence, black ink sealing a fate she'd never agreed to. Her father, Marcus Stevens, stood by the window, his shoulders rigid with the weight of debts she'd only just discovered. Debts that had apparently bought her future. "Dad, you can't be serious." Her voice cracked despite her attempt at strength. "It's already done, Mariah." His reflection in the window showed a man aged beyond his 60 years. "The Moons have been our family friends for decades. This arrangement, it saves us all." The door opened behind her. Mariah turned and her breath caught. Moon Junseo stepped into the room like he owned it, because apparently he did. Tall, impossibly handsome, with jet black hair styled with calculated precision, and eyes so dark they seemed to absorb light. He wore a tailored black suit that probably cost more than her entire year's salary at the coffee shop where she worked. He looked at her for the first time, and something flickered in those obsidian eyes. Recognition, interest. She couldn't tell. "Miss Stevens." His voice was smooth, accented, dangerous. "We should talk." Mariah had always believed she controlled her own destiny. At 26, she'd carved out a modest but independent life. A small apartment in Brooklyn, a job as a barista at an upscale Manhattan coffee shop, and dreams of eventually opening her own cafe. Nothing extravagant, but it was hers. Until 3 days ago, when her father's lawyer appeared at her door with news that shattered everything. Marcus Stevens, the man who'd raised her alone after her mother's death, who'd worked as a respected accountant for New York's elite, had been living a double life. Gambling debts, bad investments, borrowed money from the wrong people. The kind of people who didn't accept "I'll pay you back eventually" as an answer. The kind of people who collected in blood or favors. Now standing in the private dining room of an exclusive Korean restaurant in Midtown, Mariah faced the man who represented both her salvation and her prison. Moon Junseo sat across from her, his presence commanding even in stillness. The restaurant had been cleared. No other patrons, just silent staff who appeared and disappeared like ghosts. The table between them held untouched banchan and steaming bowls of soup that Mariah had no appetite for. "You don't have to look so terrified," Junseo said, his English perfect but carrying the subtle melody of his native Korean. "I'm not going to hurt you. Just marry me against my will," Mariah shot back, surprised by her own boldness. Fear had a way of burning into anger when you had nothing left to lose. Something that might have been amusement crossed his face. "Your father owes my organization $3 million. The marriage contract settles that debt and creates an alliance our families both need. It's business. I'm not a business transaction." "No." His gaze swept over her, analytical but not cold. "You're much more interesting than that." Mariah's hands clenched in her lap. She wore her best dress, a simple navy sheath she'd bought on sale 2 years ago, but felt absurdly underdressed in this world of wealth and power. Her natural hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and she'd skipped the makeup she couldn't afford to replace. Next to Junseo's tailored perfection, she felt like an imposter. "I have a life," she said, hating how her voice wavered. "A job. Friends. I can't just—" "You'll keep your life." Junseo leaned back, and she noticed for the first time the elegant vertical tattoo on the side of his neck. Small, delicate Korean characters, partially visible above his collar. "I'm not asking you to disappear. The marriage is legal, binding, but doesn't require traditional obligations." Heat rushed to her cheeks at the implication. "So it's just a piece of paper, for now." His eyes held hers. "Unless circumstances change." Before she could respond, the door opened. A man entered, shorter than Junseo but no less intimidating, with sharp features and calculating eyes. He spoke rapid Korean, and Junseo's expression darkened. "Excuse me," he said to Mariah, standing. "There's a situation that requires my attention." "What kind of situation?" He paused, studying her with new interest. "The kind you don't need to worry about. I'll have my driver take you home. I can take the subway." "No." The single word carried absolute authority. "You're under my protection now. That means you don't take the subway at night, you don't walk home alone, and you certainly don't refuse my driver." Mariah stood, anger overriding caution. I didn't agree to any of this. You can't just— Your father signed the contract 3 days ago. You became my responsibility the moment his signature dried. Junseo moved closer, and she caught the scent of expensive cologne mixed with something darker. Danger, maybe, or power. I take my responsibilities seriously, Mariah. The way he said her name, careful, like he was tasting it, sent an unwanted shiver down her spine. I have one condition, she said, lifting her chin. I want to see the contract, the real one, not the summary my father showed me. Surprise flickered across his features, followed by what looked like approval. Smart. Come to my office tomorrow at noon. Bring questions. He pulled a business card from his inner pocket, pressing it into her palm. His fingers were warm against her skin. Don't be late. Then he was gone, leaving her alone with cold food and 1,000 racing thoughts. The driver, a silent man in his 40s who introduced himself only as Park, deposited her at her apartment building in Crown Heights 90 minutes later. Mariah trudged up 3 flights of stairs, exhaustion replacing adrenaline. Her phone buzzed as she unlocked her door. An unknown number. Sleep well, Mariah. Tomorrow we discuss the terms of our arrangement. MJS. She stared at the message, fingers hovering over the screen. A dozen responses formed and died in her mind. Finally she typed, I have terms of my own. His reply came instantly. Good. I'd be disappointed if you didn't. Mariah tossed her phone on the couch and sank down beside it, head in her hands. 3 days ago, her biggest worry was making rent. Now she was engaged to a man she'd met for all of 30 minutes, a man who commanded private restaurants and drivers and apparently had organizations that loaned $3 million. A man whose eyes saw too much and whose voice made her feel things she absolutely couldn't afford to feel. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Junseo. One more thing, don't research me online. You won't like what you find, and most of it isn't true. If you want to know who I am, ask me directly. Mariah grabbed her laptop. 2 hours later, she sat frozen in front of the screen, search results painting a picture that made her blood run cold. Moon Junseo wasn't just wealthy, he was dangerous. Articles, carefully worded to avoid lawsuits, linked him to one of New York's most powerful Korean organized crime families. Nothing proven, always speculation, but the pattern was clear. Her father hadn't just sold her to pay a debt. He'd sold her to the Korean mafia. Mariah didn't sleep. She spent the night spiraling between panic, anger, and a strange, unwanted curiosity about the man who now owned a piece of her future. By the time dawn broke over Brooklyn, she'd made a decision. She would meet Junseo, demand answers, and find a way out of this nightmare. There had to be loopholes, legal options, something. At 11:45 a.m., she stood outside a sleek glass tower in Lower Manhattan, staring up at the building that housed Moon Enterprises. Whatever she'd expected from a mafia front, this wasn't it. The lobby gleamed with marble and chrome, and the security guards wore suits nicer than anything in her closet. Miss Stevens, a young woman in designer business attire, approached, her smile professional. Mr. Moon is expecting you. This way, please. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor felt like ascending into another world. When the doors opened, Mariah stepped into an office that resembled a luxury penthouse more than a workspace. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Modern art adorned the walls, and everything from the furniture to the coffee table books screamed wealth. Junseo stood by the windows, phone to his ear, speaking rapid Korean. He wore another impeccable suit, charcoal gray this time, and that tattoo peeked above his collar like a secret. When he noticed her, he ended the call abruptly. "You're early," he said, and she couldn't tell if he was pleased or testing her. "I'm punctual." Mariah forced herself not to fidget. She'd worn her best work clothes, black slacks and a cream blouse, but still felt absurdly out of place. "Coffee?" He gestured to an elaborate espresso machine that probably cost more than her car. "I work in a coffee shop. I know how to make my own." His lips curved slightly. "Then make us both something. Impress me." It was a test, obviously. Mariah walked to the machine, assessing it with professional eyes. Top of the line, barely used. She went through the familiar motions, grinding beans, tamping, pulling shots, while feeling his gaze on her back. 5 minutes later, she handed him a perfectly crafted cappuccino, the foam art forming a delicate leaf pattern. Junseo studied it, then took a sip. His eyebrows rose fractionally. Exceptional. I'm good at what I do. She met his eyes over her own cup. Even if it's just making coffee. There's no just about skilled work. He set down his cup and pulled a thick folder from his desk. The contract as promised. Read it carefully. Mariah spent the next hour dissecting legal language, while Junseo worked silently at his desk. She'd expected a one-sided agreement that gave him everything and her nothing. What she found was far more complex. The marriage would last a minimum of 2 years. She would receive a monthly allowance of $10,000 for expenses and independence, the clause read. She could maintain her job and her apartment, though Junseo reserved the right to assign security when he deemed necessary. In return, she would attend certain social functions as his wife and maintain the appearance of a legitimate marriage. After 2 years, they could divorce with no penalties if both parties agreed. The debt would be considered settled, regardless. This is... She looked up, confused. This is actually fair. Did you expect me to chain you in a basement? Amusement colored his tone. After reading about you online? Maybe. His expression shuttered. I told you not to do that. And I don't take orders well. Apparently that's something you should know about your future wife. Mariah closed the folder. The article said you're involved in organized crime, that your family controls half the Korean businesses in New York and isn't afraid to use violence to maintain power. True or false? Junseo stood, moving to the windows. The afternoon sun cast him in silhouette, making it impossible to read his face. When he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. My family has business interests that operate in gray areas. We protect Korean business owners from predatory practices, provide financial services to those who can't access traditional banking, and yes, we maintain order in our territory. Violence. He turned to face her. Only when absolutely necessary and never against innocents. That's a very sanitized way of saying you're a criminal. Perhaps. But I've never killed anyone who didn't threaten my family first. I don't traffic in drugs or human misery, and I've kept this community safer than the NYPD ever has. His eyes locked onto hers. Judge me if you want, Mariah, but your father came to me for help, not the other way around. The truth of that stung. Why agree to this marriage? You could have just taken the money in installments, ruined him financially. Why me? Junseo moved closer, stopping just beyond arm's reach. Because your father has connections I need. Because a marriage creates legitimate business ties that protect both our interests. And because... He paused, something vulnerable flickering across his face before vanishing. Because when I met you yesterday, you looked me in the eye without fear. Everyone in my world either cowers or flatters. You did neither. Mariah's heart hammered against her ribs. That's not a reason to marry someone. No. His gaze dropped to her lips, then back to her eyes. But it's a start. The moment stretched between them, charged with something Mariah couldn't name and didn't want to examine. She stepped back, breaking the spell. I need time to think. You have until Friday. Junseo returned to his desk, his tone shifting back to business. The wedding is scheduled for Saturday at 2 p.m. Small ceremony, immediate family only. Your father will attend, obviously. What? Panic surged. That's 4 days away. The contract must be executed quickly. I have competitors who would exploit any delay. He pulled out a credit card, sliding it across the desk. For a dress and anything else you need. The pin is your birthday. How do you know my birthday? I know everything about you, Mariah Stevens. Born February 14th at Lenox Hill Hospital. Mother died when you were 7. Car accident. Father raised you alone. Graduated from CUNY with a degree in business management, but couldn't find work in your field, so you took a job at Blessed Brew in Midtown. You're 3 months behind on your student loans, and your landlord just raised your rent by $200. He leaned back in his chair, watching her process this invasion of privacy. Should I continue? Rage and fear warred in her chest. You had me investigated. I investigate everyone who enters my life. It's how I stay alive. No apology in his tone, just fact. But here's what the investigation didn't tell me. You volunteer at a community center in Crown Heights every Tuesday, teaching kids to read. You visit your father every Sunday despite your complicated relationship. And last month you gave your last $40 to a homeless woman outside your subway stop. Mariah's throat tightened. Stop. Those things aren't in any database, Mariah. I had to watch you to learn them. Junseo stood again, and this time when he approached, she didn't back away. I chose you not because you're convenient, but because you're extraordinary, and I protect what's mine. I'm not yours. Not yet. He picked up the credit card she'd ignored, pressing it into her palm and closing her fingers around it. His hands were warm, strong, and far too gentle for a man the internet called dangerous. But you will be. In 4 days, you'll be my wife. And I promise you this, I will never hurt you, never force you, and never make you regret saying yes. I haven't said yes. Yes, you have. His thumb brushed across her knuckles, the touch sending electricity up her arm. You said yes the moment you came here today instead of running. You said yes when you read that contract looking for loopholes, but finding fairness instead. And you're saying yes right now because you know, just like I do, that something impossible is starting between us. Mariah pulled her hand away, clutching the credit card like a lifeline. You're insane. Probably. He smiled then, a real smile that transformed his face from dangerously handsome to devastating. But I'm your kind of insane now. Friday night, 8 p.m. I'm taking you to dinner. Somewhere public, somewhere safe. We'll talk more about expectations. And if I don't show up, you will. Junseo walked her to the door, his hand briefly touching the small of her back. Proprietary, protective. Because you're curious now, because you want to know if I'm truly as dangerous as they say, or if maybe, just maybe, I'm something else entirely. The elevator doors closed on his knowing smile, leaving Mariah alone with her thundering heart and too many questions. Her phone buzzed before she reached the lobby. Wear something beautiful on Friday. I want to show you off. MJS. Against all logic, all self-preservation, Mariah found herself smiling. Friday arrived too quickly and too slowly at the same time. Mariah spent the days between drowning in wedding preparations she hadn't asked for and shifts at Blessed Brew where she moved through the motions like a ghost. Her co-workers noticed. Sweet Jenny, who always brought extra pastries. Marcus, who covered her mistakes without comment. But she couldn't explain that in 24 hours she'd be someone's wife. Moon Junseo's wife. The thought still felt surreal. She'd used his credit card exactly once, at a boutique in Soho where the sales associate's eyes had widened at the black Amex. The dress she'd chosen was deep emerald green, elegant without being revealing, and cost more than 2 months of rent. She'd almost put it back 3 times before remembering Junseo's words, I want to show you off. Now, standing in front of her bathroom mirror at 7:45 p.m., Mariah barely recognized herself. The dress hugged her curves perfectly. Her natural hair was styled in a halo of curls that had taken an hour to perfect, and she'd splurged on makeup that made her dark brown skin glow. She looked like she could belong in Junseo's world. The illusion terrified her. Her phone buzzed. I'm downstairs, take your time. Mariah grabbed her clutch, also new, also expensive, and headed down. The sleek black Mercedes waited at the curb, and when Park opened the door, she found Junseo inside, his sharp intake of breath audible in the confined space. Mariah. Her name was reverent, almost pained. He wore a black suit with a midnight blue shirt that brought out the intensity of his dark eyes, and that tattoo seemed to pulse above his collar. You're stunning. You said to wear something beautiful. She slid in, hyper-aware of the way his gaze tracked her every movement. I underestimated. His voice dropped lower, intimate. Dangerously so. The restaurant was in Tribeca, the kind of place that didn't have prices on the menu and required reservations months in advance. Junseo had a private table in an alcove overlooking the Hudson River, the Manhattan lights painting the water in ribbons of gold. How did you get a reservation here? Mariah asked, as the sommelier poured wine she knew cost hundreds per bottle. I own 20% of this restaurant. Junseo raised his glass in a small toast. To new beginnings. To surviving them, she countered, clinking her glass against his. Dinner was exquisite. Coursed tasting menu that blended French technique with Korean ingredients. Between dishes they talked, really talked, the kind of conversation that revealed layers. Junseo told her about growing up in Seoul, the youngest son of a powerful family who'd sent him to America at 16 to expand their influence. He spoke about the loneliness of being an outsider in two worlds, never quite Korean enough for his family, never quite American enough for his peers. "I built this empire to prove I belonged somewhere," he admitted, swirling wine in his glass. "But success is hollow when you can't share it with anyone real." Mariah found herself sharing things she'd never told anyone. The grief that still ambushed her when she smelled her mother's perfume, the guilt of watching her father spiral, the dreams she'd put on hold so many times they'd calcified into regrets. "You wanted your own cafe," Junseo said, and it wasn't a question. Wanted. Past tense. She traced the rim of her glass. "Can't afford the startup costs. Can't get a loan with my debt-to-income ratio, and definitely can't risk it now." "Why not? Because I'm about to be married to a mobster?" She tried to make it a joke, but it fell flat. Junseo leaned forward, his eyes intense in the candlelight. "Mariah, the contract gives you financial independence. That $10,000 a month isn't for clothes and shoes, though you're welcome to those too. It's for your dreams. Open your cafe. I'll help." "I can't take your money. Our money. That's what marriage means." He reached across the table, his hand covering hers. "I'm not proposing a business transaction anymore. I'm proposing a partnership. You get your dreams, I get someone who sees me as human instead of a weapon." The warmth of his palm seeped into her skin, dangerous and addictive. "You barely know me. I know you volunteer with kids because you believe in second chances. I know you tip 40% at coffee shops because you understand service work. I know you stood up to me, twice, when men with guns won't." His thumb traced circles on her wrist, the touch sending shivers up her arm. "And I know when you smile, really smile, it feels like sunlight in a life that's been dark too long." Mariah's breath caught. "Junseo, I'm not asking you to love me tomorrow." His voice was raw, unguarded. "I'm asking you to give us a chance to become something real." Before she could respond, his phone buzzed urgently. Junseo's expression hardened as he read the message. "I need to make a call." "Excuse me." He stepped away, and Mariah watched through the window as his posture shifted, shoulders back, jaw tight, every inch the dangerous man the articles had described. He spoke rapid Korean, his free hand clenched into a fist. When he returned, the vulnerable man from moments ago was gone, replaced by the mobster. "We need to leave now." "What's wrong?" "Rival organization. They know about tomorrow's wedding, and they're making moves tonight." He pulled cash from his wallet, dropping hundreds on the table without counting. "I need to get you somewhere safe." Fear spiked through her. "Safe from what?" "From people who would use you against me." Junseo gripped her hand, pulling her up. "Trust me, Mariah, please." They rushed to the car, Park already at the wheel with the engine running. Junseo pushed her into the back seat and climbed in after, his phone pressed to his ear, issuing commands in Korean. "Where are we going?" Mariah asked, trying to control her panic. "My penthouse, it's secure." He finally looked at her, and something in his eyes made her blood run cold. "I'm sorry. This is my world, and it's ugly, and I never wanted you to see this part. Too late now." "Yeah." His hand found hers again, squeezing. "Too late now." The drive to his building, a luxury high-rise in Murray Hill, took 20 minutes that felt like hours. Junseo's phone never stopped buzzing. His responses grew shorter, harder, and Mariah caught words even in Korean that sounded like threats. His penthouse occupied the entire 45th floor. The space was minimalist and sophisticated, all dark woods and clean lines, with windows overlooking the city that made her feel like they were floating above the chaos below. "Stay here." Junseo guided her to the couch. "Don't go near the windows. I have security in the building, but..." "But what?" Mariah grabbed his arm. "Junseo, what exactly is happening?" He looked down at her hand on his sleeve, then up at her face. "The Choi family. They've controlled territory adjacent to ours for years, and they see our marriage as a threat. Your father's connections give me access to financial networks they've wanted for years. So this is about business." "It's always about business," he said bitterly. "But they'll hurt you to hurt me. That's how this world works." "Then why bring me into it?" Anger overrode fear. "Why not just leave me alone, pay my father's debt another way?" "Because I'm selfish." Junseo cupped her face in his hands, the gesture achingly tender. "Because from the moment I saw you, I wanted you in my life, and I'm too much of a bastard to walk away even when I should." His phone rang again. He cursed in Korean, releasing her to answer. The conversation was terse, aggressive. When he hung up, his expression was murderous. "I need to go handle this. One of my people was jumped leaving a club. He's alive, but—" Junseo stopped, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair, destroying it. "I can't leave you alone." "Then don't." The words escaped before she could stop them. "I mean, I'll be fine. Go do what you need to do." "No." He pulled out his phone again, dialing. "Hyunwoo, I need you at my place now. Guard detail." A pause. "I don't care if you were sleeping. Now." 20 minutes later, a man arrived, late 20s, sharp-eyed, with the same aura of controlled danger as Junseo. He bowed slightly to Mariah, then spoke to Junseo in rapid Korean. "Mariah, this is Kang Hyunwoo, my right hand." Junseo switched to English. "He'll stay with you until I return. He speaks perfect English. He's trained in 8 forms of combat, and he'll die before letting anyone hurt you." "That's dramatic," Mariah muttered. "That's factual." Junseo looked at Hyunwoo. "Nobody gets in, nobody. If the Choi's make a move on this building, you get her to the safe room and call for backup." "Understood, Hyungnim." Hyunwoo's voice carried absolute loyalty. Junseo turned back to Mariah, his hands framing her face again. "I'll be back before dawn. Please, just stay safe. For me. You stay safe too." Something vulnerable crossed his features. "Nobody's ever said that to me before." "Then they're idiots." Mariah reached up, her fingers brushing the tattoo on his neck. "What does this mean?" He caught her hand, pressing it flat against the ink. "Kungshong. Loyalty. It's what I value most in this world." His eyes held hers, intense and searching. "One day soon, maybe you'll wear my mark too." Then he was gone, leaving her alone with a bodyguard and 1,000 racing thoughts. Hyunwoo proved to be surprisingly good company. He made tea, checked the windows, and then settled in a chair facing the door with the stillness of someone who could wait forever. "He cares about you," Hyunwoo said suddenly, startling her. "I've known Junseo since we were kids in Seoul. I've never seen him like this." "Like what?" "Human." A small smile touched his lips. "Usually he's all ice and calculation, but with you, he's terrified, and Junseo doesn't get terrified." Mariah curled into the corner of the couch, hugging her knees. "I don't know how to do this. Be part of his world. You're already part of it. The question is whether you'll let him be part of yours." The words echoed long after Hyunwoo fell silent, standing guard, while Mariah waited for a man who was becoming far too important, far too fast. Junseo returned at 4:47 a.m., and Mariah knew immediately something had gone horribly wrong. Blood stained his white shirt, not his own, she realized, with a jolt of relief mixed with horror. His knuckles were split, his jaw tight with barely controlled rage, and his eyes held a darkness that made her understand why people feared him. "Out," he said to Hyunwoo, his voice flat. "Hyungnim, now." Hyunwoo left without another word, closing the door softly behind him. Mariah stood frozen as Junseo stalked to the bar, pouring 3 fingers of whiskey and downing it in one swallow. His hands shook, barely perceptible, but she saw it. "Are you hurt?" Her voice cracked the silence. "No." He poured another drink. "But Minho is in the hospital. They broke his ribs, fractured his skull. He's 23 years old, Mariah. He joined my organization because I promised to protect him, and now he's fighting for his life because the Choi's wanted to send me a message." Grief and guilt poured off him in waves. Mariah moved before thinking, crossing the room to stand beside him at the bar. She took the glass from his hand, setting it down, then turned him to face her. "This isn't your fault, isn't it?" His laugh was bitter. "Every person in my organization is a target because of me. Every decision I make puts lives at risk. And now you— God, Mariah, I've put you in danger just by wanting you near me. I'm still here, aren't I? You should run." He gripped her shoulders, his touch desperate. "Cancel tomorrow. Disappear. I'll clear your father's debt anyway. You can have your life back. What if I don't want my life back?" The words shocked her as much as they did him. "What if I want this? You?" Junseo stared at her, like she'd grown a second head. "You don't mean that." "Don't tell me what I mean." Anger flared. At him, at the situation. at herself for feeling what she felt. I'm not some helpless victim you need to save. I've had 4 days to think about tomorrow, and you know what? I'm still here. I'm still saying yes. Why? His hands slid from her shoulders to frame her face, thumbs brushing her cheekbones. Why would you choose this nightmare? Because when you look at me, I feel seen. Because when you smile, really smile, I forget to be afraid. Because you're broken and dangerous and somehow still the most honest person I've met. Mariah's voice dropped to a whisper. And because when I imagine walking away, I can't breathe. Something in Junseo shattered. He kissed her. No warning, no preamble, just his mouth on hers with a desperation that stole her breath. Mariah gasped against his lips, and he took advantage, deepening the kiss until she was drowning in the taste of whiskey and want. His hands tangled in her curls, angling her head to take more, give more. She gripped his shirt, feeling the thunderous beat of his heart beneath her palms. The kiss was consuming, acclaiming, everything she shouldn't want and couldn't resist. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Junseo pressed his forehead to hers. I don't deserve you. Good thing I'm not asking permission. Mariah traced the tattoo on his neck, feeling him shudder. What happened tonight? He pulled back, the moment shattering. We sent a message back. The Choys know that attacking my people means war, and I don't lose wars. What kind of message? The permanent kind. No apology, no softening. I won't lie to you, Mariah. I hurt people tonight. People who deserved it, but still, if that changes how you see me, it doesn't. And shockingly, it was true. Your world is violent. I'm not naive enough to pretend otherwise. But you protect your people. You have a code. That matters. Junseo studied her face like he was memorizing it. You're extraordinary. I'm terrified. She laughed shakily. But I'm also weirdly exhilarated. Is that insane? If it is, we're both crazy. He pulled her close, wrapping her in his arms. The embrace was tight, protective, and Mariah let herself sink into it. Tomorrow you become mine. Legally, publicly, irrevocably. And you become mine, she countered. That cuts both ways. Thank God for that. He pressed a kiss to her temple, lingering. Get some sleep. We have a wedding in 9 hours. Where will you sleep? Guest room. I'm not pushing my luck. But he didn't release her, and Mariah didn't pull away. They stood like that as dawn broke over the city, 2 people on the precipice of something that terrified and thrilled them in equal measure. Saturday, 2 p.m., arrived with deceptive calm. The ceremony took place in a private room at the Plaza Hotel, intimate, elegant, and nothing like the wedding Mariah had imagined as a girl. Her father stood stiffly in an expensive suit Junseo had provided, his eyes red-rimmed with guilt. Hyunwoo served as Junseo's best man, and a handful of organization members she didn't know filled the chairs. Mariah wore a dress she'd chosen Friday morning, ivory silk that hugged her body before flowing into a small train, with delicate beading that caught the light. Her hair was styled in an intricate updo, and she carried a small bouquet of calla lilies. When Junseo saw her at the end of the short aisle, his composure cracked. His eyes darkened with want, possession, something deeper she couldn't name. The ceremony was brief. The officiant spoke about commitment and partnership, and Mariah barely heard it over the pounding of her heart. Then came the vows. I, Moon Junseo, take you, Mariah Stevens, to be my wife. His voice was steady, but his hands trembled as he slid the ring onto her finger, a platinum band with a single emerald flanked by diamonds. I promise to protect you, to value you, and to never make you regret this moment. You are mine now, and I am yours, always. Mariah's throat tightened. I, Mariah Stevens, take you, Moon Junseo, to be my husband. I promise to stand with you, to see you as you are, and to choose you even when it's hard. You are mine now, and I am yours, always. You may kiss your bride. Junseo cupped her face with infinite gentleness, his lips brushing hers in a kiss that was tender, reverent, and full of unspoken promises. The room erupted in applause, but Mariah only heard her own heartbeat and his whispered words against her mouth. Mine. Finally mine. The reception was small but luxurious, a private dining room with champagne and a 3-tier cake. Mariah's father approached as she and Junseo cut the first slice. Baby girl. Marcus's voice cracked. I'm so sorry. I never wanted... I know, Dad. Mariah hugged him, feeling his tears against her hair. I know. He'll take care of you, Marcus whispered. Better than I ever could. It should have hurt. Instead, it felt like release. Hours later, as guests departed, and the reality of being Moon Junseo's wife settled over her, Mariah found him on the balcony overlooking Central Park. The November air was crisp, but he draped his jacket over her shoulders the moment she stepped outside. Mrs. Moon, he said, testing the name. It suits you. It's going to take some getting used to. She leaned against the railing beside him. What happens now? Now? Junseo turned to her, his expression unreadable. Now we figure out how to make a marriage born from necessity into something neither of us can live without. That's a tall order. Good thing I like a challenge. He pulled her close, and Mariah went willingly, tucking herself against his chest. I have something to tell you. About the Choi. Her stomach tightened. What about them? They've agreed to a truce temporarily. My display of force last night convinced them we're not worth the war. But, he paused, his jaw clenching. They've demanded a meeting. Tomorrow. And they want to meet you. Why? To verify the marriage is real. To assess whether you're a weakness they can exploit. His arms tightened around her. I won't force you to go. But if you don't, they'll assume I'm hiding you because I care too much, which makes you a target anyway. Mariah pulled back to look at him. Then I'll go. Show them I'm not afraid. Mariah, I'm your wife now. That means I face this with you. She traced the line of his jaw, feeling stubble rough beneath her fingertips. Besides, I'm curious. What kind of people scare the great Moon Junseo? The kind who have nothing to lose and everything to prove. But pride flickered in his eyes. You're sure? I'm sure. He kissed her then, slow and deep, pouring every ounce of gratitude and fear and want into the connection. When they finally broke apart, breathless, Junseo rested his forehead against hers. Thank you, he whispered, for choosing me, for staying, for being brave when I can't be. You're the bravest person I know, Mariah countered. You just hide it behind all that dangerous swagger. His laugh was surprised, genuine. My wife thinks I swagger. Your wife knows you do. She grinned, feeling giddy despite everything. Now take me home, we have a war to prepare for. Our home, Junseo corrected, leading her back inside. Starting now, everything I have is ours. As they left the plaza, Mariah caught her reflection in a mirror, flushed, glowing, transformed. She barely recognized herself, and the strangest part was that she didn't mind. She'd married a mobster to save her father. But somewhere between fear and fury, between contracts and kisses, she'd started falling for the man beneath the reputation. And judging by the way Junseo couldn't stop touching her, her hand, her back, her hair, he was falling too. The real question was whether they'd survive the landing. The meeting with the Choi family took place in a neutral location, a private room at an upscale Korean restaurant in Koreatown. Junseo had spent Sunday morning briefing Mariah on protocol, names to remember, insults to ignore. Don't show fear, he'd instructed, adjusting his cufflinks with military precision. Don't show anger. Show strength, intelligence, and absolute confidence that you belong at my side. No pressure, Mariah had muttered, but she'd chosen her outfit carefully. A tailored black pantsuit that made her look professional and powerful, her natural hair styled sleek, makeup minimal but flawless. When they entered the restaurant at exactly 7 p.m., every eye turned to them. Junseo's hand rested possessively on the small of her back, and Mariah kept her spine straight, her expression neutral. The Choi family waited at a large table. 3 men and 1 woman, all impeccably dressed, all radiating controlled danger. The oldest man, late 50s, silver-haired, with eyes like chips of ice, stood. Moon Junseo. His English was accented but perfect. And this must be the bride we've heard so much about. Choi De-jung. Junseo's tone was respectful but not deferential. May I present my wife, Mariah Moon. Using her married name sent a thrill through her that she carefully hid. Mariah extended her hand, meeting De-jung's gaze without flinching. Mr. Choi, thank you for agreeing to meet. He studied her handshake, firm, confident, before releasing it. Please, sit. Let us discuss how our families might coexist peacefully. The dinner was a carefully choreographed dance of power. Courses arrived as conversation flowed, questions designed to probe weaknesses disguised as small talk. Mariah answered when addressed, letting Junseo handle business matters, but asserting her presence when relevant. Your father's connections in the financial sector must be valuable, Daijung commented, his tone casual, but eyes sharp. My father made mistakes, Mariah replied coolly, but his relationships are built on decades of trust. Junseo and I are working to leverage those connections for mutual benefit. And you understand the nature of your husband's business? I understand that loyalty, honor, and protection of community are central to everything he does. She met Daijung's gaze directly. I also understand that threats against his people, or against me, will be met with appropriate force. I'm comfortable with that reality. Shocked silence, then Daijung laughed. She has fire, Junseo. Perhaps you finally found your match. I know I have, Junseo said, his hand finding Mariah's under the table, squeezing. The meeting ended with tentative agreements. Territories would remain divided. Business ventures would be discussed before implementation, and violence would be a last resort. It wasn't friendship, but it was better than war. As they left, Daijung pulled Junseo aside for a private word. Mariah waited by the car, watching through the restaurant window as the two men spoke intently. Mrs. Moon, a woman's voice, the Choi daughter from dinner, mid-20s and beautiful. A word. Of course. My name is Choi Min-seo. She lit a cigarette, offering one to Mariah, who declined. I wanted to warn you. My father respects strength, but he never forgets a slight. Your husband humiliated us last week. The truce won't last. Then why agree to it? To buy time. Min-seo exhaled smoke, studying Mariah. You seem smart. Too smart for this world. Get out before it destroys you. I appreciate the concern, Mariah said carefully, but I'm exactly where I choose to be. Your funeral. But there was something like respect in Min-seo's eyes as she walked away. Junseo emerged minutes later, his expression grim. We need to go. Now. In the car, he finally explained. Daijung knows about your father's heart condition. Mariah's blood ran cold. What heart condition? He didn't tell you. Junseo's jaw clenched. He had a minor cardiac event 3 months ago. It's controlled with medication, but stress could trigger something worse. The Chois are implying they could create that stress. Fury and fear warred in Mariah's chest. They're threatening my father. Indirectly, which means directly enough to matter. Junseo pulled out his phone, dialing. I'm assigning a security detail to him effective immediately. He'll refuse. He doesn't get a choice. He's your family, which makes him mine. His voice brooked no argument. Nobody touches what's mine, Mariah. Nobody. The words from their wedding vows echoed. You are mine now, and I am yours. Always. Monday morning, Mariah returned to work at Blessed Brew for the first time since the wedding. Jenny squealed at the sight of her ring, and the manager, usually gruff, offered genuine congratulations. Normal felt surreal after the weekend's intensity. She was pulling espresso shots when he walked in. Junseo in full business mode, tailored navy suit, expression serious, flanked by Hyunwoo and another guard. Every customer in the shop stared, whispers erupting. Can I help you? Mariah asked, fighting a smile. Coffee, black, large? He leaned against the counter, his eyes never leaving her face. And whatever my wife recommends for pastry. The possessive way he said, my wife, sent heat through her. Almond croissant. Trust me. As she prepared his order, Junseo addressed Hyunwoo in Korean. She caught enough words to understand: guard rotations, building security, threat assessment. Her workplace was now protected because she worked there. When she handed him the coffee, their fingers brushed. You didn't have to come here. I wanted to see you. Simple, direct, devastating. Is that allowed? Depends. Are you going to scare my customers? Only the ones who look at you too long. He took a sip, his expression softening. This is excellent. I know. She grinned. I'm good at what I do. Yes, you are. The words carried weight beyond coffee. Dinner tonight? My place? Our place, she corrected, echoing his words from the wedding. I'll cook. Surprise flickered across his features. You cook? I'm black and southern raised. Of course I cook. She leaned forward conspiratorially. Hope you like soul food, because I'm making my mama's fried chicken recipe. I like anything you make. He dropped cash on the counter, $100 bill for a $6 order. Keep the change, for the college fund. What college fund? The one you're starting for the kids you mentor. He winked, actually winked, and strode out, leaving her speechless. Jenny appeared at her elbow. Girl, that man is obsessed with you. Yeah, Mariah breathed, watching through the window as Junseo climbed into his Mercedes. I think he is. That night, cooking in Junseo's state-of-the-art kitchen while he watched from the island, bourbon in hand felt like the most normal thing they'd done. Mariah moved through familiar motions, dredging chicken, heating oil, monitoring temperature, while he asked questions about her mother, her childhood, her dreams. She taught you to cook? Junseo asked, watching her flip pieces with practiced ease. Every Sunday after church. Said a woman who could feed people could change the world. Mariah smiled at the memory. She died before I really understood what she meant, but now, I think she was right. Food is love, sustenance, community. It's power. You're powerful. He came around the island, standing close behind her, in ways you don't even realize. His arms circled her waist, and Mariah let herself lean back against his chest, still cooking but savoring the intimacy. What about your family? Do they know about me? They know. His tone darkened. My father is displeased. He wanted me to marry someone from a connected Korean family, someone who could expand our influence in Seoul. And instead you got me. Instead I got you. Junseo turned her to face him, his hands on her hips. And I wouldn't change it for anything. You're worth more than a dozen strategic marriages. That's the sweetest and most calculated thing anyone's ever said to me. He laughed, the sound warm and genuine. I'm a work in progress. Bear with me. They ate at the dining table overlooking the city, and Junseo's appreciation for her cooking was almost comically enthusiastic. This is incredible. Why are you wasting your talent making lattes? Bills don't pay themselves. They do now. He set down his fork, expression turning serious. I meant what I said about the cafe. I want to invest in your dream, Mariah. Not as charity, as a business opportunity. You have vision, skill, and work ethic. I have capital and connections. Let's build something together. Hope and fear tangled in her chest. You really mean that? I never say things I don't mean. He reached across the table, taking her hand. Marry me for debt. Stay with me for love. But let me give you the future you deserve. I already married you, she teased, but her eyes stung with tears. Then let me earn the privilege every day. He raised her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles. Say yes, Mariah. Let me be your partner in everything. Yes. The word broke free, carrying more weight than their wedding vows. Yes to all of it. Junseo stood, pulling her up and into his arms. His kiss was different this time, not desperate or claiming, but tender, reverent, full of promise. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. I'm falling for you, he whispered. Dangerously, irrevocably, completely. And it terrifies me because I have so much to lose now. Then we'll be terrified together. Mariah cupped his face, tracing the tattoo she'd grown to love. Because I'm falling too, and there's no going back. They made love that night. Slow, exploratory, learning each other's bodies and boundaries. Junseo was patient, attentive, worshipping her like she was precious. And when they finally came together, Mariah felt something inside her shift and settle. This was real. This was theirs. And somehow, impossibly, it was right. The grand opening of Blessed Grounds Cafe was everything Mariah had dreamed and more. The space in Brooklyn, a former bookstore she and Junseo had renovated together, glowed with warmth. Exposed brick walls, plants cascading from hanging planters, mismatched vintage furniture that invited lingering. The menu board showcased her fusion concept, traditional soul food breakfast items alongside Korean-inspired coffee drinks and pastries. It's perfect, Jenny breathed, admiring the espresso machine that had cost more than Mariah's first car. It's ours, Mariah corrected, because she'd offered Jenny a partnership stake. We did this. The cafe was packed. Friends, family, neighborhood locals, and a surprising number of Junseo's business associates who'd come out of respect. Her father stood near the counter, healthy and proud, his heart condition managed now, with better medication and less stress. Junseo appeared at her elbow, sliding an arm around her waist. "You're a natural, Mrs. Moon. Look at this place. You built something beautiful." "We built it," she countered. "I never could have done this without you. Don't sell yourself short." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "Your vision, your recipes, your dream. I just wrote checks and occasionally used my reputation to speed up permits." "Occasionally," she laughed. "You terrified the city inspector." He was being unreasonable. Junseo grinned, unrepentant. "Besides, my wife deserved the best, and I wasn't going to let bureaucracy stand in her way." 6 months into their marriage, they'd found a rhythm. Mariah still worked at Blessed Brew part-time while building her cafe, and Junseo navigated his organization with her input on legitimate business expansions. The Choi truce held, tensions simmering but not boiling over. More importantly, they'd fallen in love, really truly, the kind of love that survived arguments about whose turn it was to do dishes and whose family drama was more exhausting that week. "I have something for you," Junseo said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Mariah opened it to find a delicate necklace, a golden pendant shaped like a coffee bean embedded with tiny diamonds. "Junseo, it's beautiful." "Turn it over." Engraved on the back, "To my wife who taught me that strength and softness can coexist. Forever yours." MJ's tears blurred her vision. "I love you. You know that, right?" "I know." He fastened it around her neck, his fingers lingering on her skin. "And I love you. More than I thought possible. More than I probably should given how short a time we've known each other. Time doesn't matter when it's right." "No," he agreed. "It doesn't." Hyunwoo appeared, clearing his throat apologetically. "Kyungnim, the mayor just arrived." "Duty calls." Junseo sighed, but his eyes danced with amusement. "Go be brilliant. I'll schmooze the politicians." Mariah watched him work the room, confident, charismatic, every inch the powerful man she'd married. But when he glanced back at her, his expression softened into something only she ever saw, pure, unguarded love. Later, after the crowd thinned and the last customer left, Mariah stood in her cafe, taking it all in. She'd started this journey forced into a marriage she didn't want, terrified and desperate. Now she stood in her own business, wearing a wedding ring she never took off, married to a man who'd become her partner in every sense. "Ready to go home?" Junseo asked, appearing behind her with her coat. Home. Not his penthouse or her old apartment, but the brownstone in Park Slope they'd bought together last month. Home was wherever they were together. "Yeah," Mariah said, lacing her fingers through his. "Let's go home." As they stepped into the cool spring evening, Junseo pulled her close. "Thank you." "For what?" "For taking a chance on a dangerous man with a complicated life, for seeing past the reputation to the person underneath, for making me believe in love when I thought I was incapable of it." His voice roughened with emotion. "You saved me, Mariah. In every way a person can be saved." She stretched up, kissing him softly. "For you saved me too. We saved each other." And it was true. Two broken people from different worlds had collided in the worst possible circumstances and somehow forged something beautiful, something real, something worth fighting for. The mafia boss and the barista. The arranged marriage that became a love story. The ending neither of them had planned, but both of them had needed. As they walked home through Brooklyn streets, fingers intertwined, Mariah sent up a silent thank you to whatever force had brought them together. Their story had started with force and fear, but it would continue with choice and love, and that made all the difference.